Welcome to the Master Your Roles podcast. This show will teach you the time management skills you need to be joyful, productive, and fulfilled in all areas of life. I'm your host, Scott Snow. Today's episode is titled Game of Thrones, 10 Personal Productivity Lessons We Can Learn from the TV Series. Now, if you're listening, you've probably seen the show. What an amazing show, amazing books. I just got finished season 7. I'm waiting for the 8th season to come out on DVD at the library. And this is my second time going through the show, and there's so much to enjoy. So I've created some tips from the TV show. And I'll basically go through some of my favorite characters, and that will be each part of this podcast. So you can take from it what you will. The first character is Ned Stark. And what I think about with him is that he really lived by his principles and his values, even though it cost him his death, cost him his life. So, I've been doing some research on values and its relationship with time management and personal productivity. One article I came across that was interesting was it was about the Stanford School, which has a lot of classes about entrepreneurship for their students. And one thing that they're really focusing more on these days is to involve that values-based decisions. I'm reading more and more in the newspapers and articles about the fact that employees are much more interested in doing work that supports their values and has some meaning for them personally. So it's becoming much more important that people do work that's valuable to them. And I think the greatest way to start on this path is to write your own mini mission statements. For each of your roles, which we've defined in the first episode, we really need to brainstorm and figure what are the most valuable attributes that have to come forward for us to be great in that role, because every role is going to take different types of attributes. So here's an example of a mini mission statement I wrote for my role of spiritual and transcendental meditation. I'm a meditator. Transcendental meditation brings beautiful depth to my life. When I'm deep within silence, I catch big fish ideas. I experience bliss whenever I want. Meditation helps me find my center and gets me in the zone for the rest of the day. TM is my magic reset button. Being a lifelong meditator helps me share my soul with a world that desperately needs it. So listening to all these mini mission statements, once you write them, then you record them, keep them on your phone or in the car, and listen to them at least once a day. And just hearing that really recenters my focus and re-energizes me for that part of me. Because really, each person is many different people, I believe, with all these different hats that we wear. So that's Mr. Ned Stark. Now, Viserys. He was the brother of the queen of the mother of dragons, and he was a creep. And of course, as I said before, I love the villains, and he was excellent. I wish I could have had more of him. But one quote that he had that I really liked was, "When they write the history of my reign, sweet sister, they will say it began today." And I love the boldness of that statement. It really affects me. Just the fact that this right here today is the beginning of this next great thing I'll do. He had a clear vision, that's for sure. It reminds me, oddly enough, of Jim Collins and his book Good to Great. Because one thing I love about that book is he talks about level 5 leadership. And although Viserys was certainly not a level 5 leader, he was very self-absorbed and evil. Level 5 leadership, I'll just read a little bit about what's on Jim Collins' website about level 5 leadership. It displays a powerful mixture of personal humility and indomitable will. They're incredibly ambitious, but their ambition is first and foremost the cause for the organization and its purpose, not themselves. While level 5 leaders can come in many personality packages, they are often self-effacing, quiet, reserved, and even shy. Every good to great transition in our research began with a level 5 leader who motivated the enterprise more with inspired standards than inspiring personality. So everyone thinks that it's a big, huge ego personality in a company that often turns it around and makes it good to great. But he, in fact, found in his research that it was quite the opposite, that a lot of times those egomaniacs led the company downhill. And I love the dichotomy of, on one hand, you have to be extremely inspired and motivated, but on the other, completely open to input from others and to say, well, maybe I'm wrong. So I love that dichotomy. And for some reason also I started thinking of Gary Vee with this, documentation. He talks a lot about documenting your life and your journey instead of just creating content all the time. So see what you're working on right now and share that, whatever it is, instead of just always thinking of, 7 steps to blah, blah, blah. Daenerys, of course, one of the biggest stars of the show, and she's the mother of dragons. And the thing I think about with her is that she really developed her confidence throughout the movie. And, it was through the experiences that she had that made her grow. And I started to think about confidence. And there was an article that I read from Richard Petty, a psychology professor at Ohio State. And he has spent decades studying confidence. And he talks about confidence as being defined as the stuff that turns thoughts into action. Confidence first turns our thoughts into judgments about what we are capable of, and then transforms those judgments into action. So if we don't have that self-confidence, we're not even getting to the point of the action steps. King Robert. What I love about King Robert is that he, although he was the king, he was pretty bored with his job. He didn't like the day-to-day listening to people gripe and making judgment on the throne. He was a hunter. He liked to go out hunting, try to catch a wild boar and have the breeze go through his hair and he's riding that horse. And so he needed that to be grounded in that. And I think we all have an element of that if we strip ourselves down to the essentials, if we know what they are, then we can rejuvenate in that way. Tony Robbins talks a lot about having inner strength. And this is one quote he said, "The power of positive thinking is the ability to generate a feeling of certainty in yourself when nothing in the environment supports you." Love that. Varys, he was the bald guy who was always scheming in the back. And for him, I think smooth, relaxed, but he was always 3 steps ahead of everybody. He was very focused on what nobody else was focused on. And that's what made him pretty successful. Well, until the end. And, as Brian Tracy says, every minute you spend planning saves 10 minutes in execution. So thinking ahead and trying to get mentors that can help you save a lot of time. Also, I think of quality questions. Questions are huge. And I recommend once you have your role list to set aside 15, 20 minutes a week and brainstorm great questions for each role. And that'll really get you focused on the future and solutions. And your obstacles too. Did you know that there are good questions and bad questions? A bad question that I hear a lot is, why am I always broke? Why can't I ever catch a break? Boo, boo, boo. That victim mentality. And you want to think open-ended, solution-focused, empowering questions. Here are some good questions. If I could have anyone as a mentor, who would it be? What would I give up to save an extra $300 a month? What would be a perfect day for me? Now, here are some examples of questions related to roles. For a healthy body role, what are 2 easy and healthy recipes I can start making this week? Hobbyist role, who do I know that's into fly fishing? Parent role, what's the biggest challenge my kids are struggling with, and what are some resources to help? So start that routine of brainstorming great questions for all of your roles. And please share them with me. Now, another favorite of mine was Cyril Farrell, the dancing master. He was the sword, the king's sword or the sword of Bravos. And he would teach you sword fighting. But he was all into the beauty and the flowing and the art of it. And he, of course, took Arya under his wing. And I just love their interaction. That's one of my favorite scenes, is when he first starts teaching her. And she really becomes a ferocious fighter.